Hi everyone, my name is Marielle and I am here today to show you all how to design and sew your own pillow. I want to thank you so much for taking a part in this project with me today. I also wanted to give a big thank you to the Dover Arts Commission. With their help, I was able to create this activity for you. I hope that by the end of this video, you will have made a wonderful craft and learned a little bit about the history of Dover at the same time. Dover was a town built around the Dover Manufacturing Company, where they first began by manufacturing cotton fabrics. They then expanded their company to begin printing beautiful designs on these fabrics. Today, we will be able to go back in time and imagine that we are one of the workers in the factory, printing our own designs onto the fabric provided. I want to start us off by going through our bag of goodies. The first thing we have is a foam sheet that we'll use to cut out our stamps. Next, we have this piece of paper with different stencils that you can cut out and trace onto the foam if you need some ideas, but you can always draw directly on the foam and cut that out if you want. We also have this wooden block that we will use as a handle to attach to our stamps. Then we have two paintbrushes that we'll use to paint onto the stamps. And finally, we have 4 mini sewing kits that we'll use to sew together our 2 pieces of fabric in the end. Next, we have our 5 colors of paint that you'll be getting: yellow, blue, red, black, and white. You'll be getting these in these cute little containers, all 5 colors just like this. You'll be able to dip directly into these with your paintbrush or put it on a paper plate just like I had it. Next, we'll have our 2 pieces of fabric. The first will be a fabric that looks just like the type of designs they used to have in the factory. The second is this blank piece of cotton fabric that you'll be able to design and paint your own ideas onto. Finally, we have some stuffing that you'll be able to use to stuff your pillows in the end. Now, why did I give you only red, yellow, and blue? Well, with these 3 colors, we can mix all the colors in the rainbow. As you can see here, we can mix red and yellow to make orange, red and blue to make purple, and yellow and blue to make green. Finally, I want to go through some of the things that you'll need but aren't in the bag. We'll need some scissors to cut out our shapes, some tape to tape the block to the foam, and a marker to trace out our designs onto the foam. We will also need some paper towels to clean off our paintbrushes and our hands, as well as some water to clean our paintbrushes in if we need to. Before we get started, I wanted to share a little bit more about Dover's history and maybe give you some ideas about what you will create. This man here is John Williams. He is the one responsible for starting it all. He began the Dover Cotton Factory in 1812. He built 1 factory building, then 2, 3, and 4. After building number 3, they renamed the group the Dover Manufacturing Company. In 1826, 1 year after building their 4th building, they expanded to begin printing designs onto fabrics. You can read more about this on the Dover Public Library's website by searching for the history of Dover. One great thing about the Dover Manufacturing Company, which later became owned by the Cocheco Manufacturing Company, is that they kept great records. Because of this, we have this book of fabrics that holds some of the best preserved fabric samples from the 1800s. These are some beautiful fabrics that were saved and cataloged. You can see they loved plants and flowers, but also other kinds of patterns. You can find this book and flip through it yourself by going to thehenryford.org. I will also leave a link in the description. Now let's get started. I'm going to start out by cutting out some of my favorite patterns from this sample. I really liked this circle, this leaf, and this little stick. Here they are, all cut out. And now that I have them cut out, I'm going to take them, place them onto my foam, and trace them, just like this. also wanted a different type of leaf, so I drew it myself. Next, I cut them all out. Now, we are going to take our wooden block and our tape and attach the wooden block to the stamps. I'm going to make a little loop with the tape, attach it to the block, and then attach the block to whatever stamp I want to use first. When I'm done using that stamp, I can simply peel it off and stick the block to a new stamp. Now it's time to jump into it. I have my cloth here and I'm going to get all my supplies, my paint, paintbrush, water, and stamps. I also want to point out that I have a piece of paper under my fabric. This way, if the paint seeps through my fabric, it won't get on the table that I'm working on. I'm going to put everything aside and get ready to start painting. I'm going to stick my block to my stamp, and I decided that I wanted to mix orange for this beautiful little leaf. Here you can see I'm mixing red and yellow to get the perfect orange color that I'm looking for. I'm also mixing a little bit of water with my paint just so that it runs more easily and I can paint a nice thin layer onto my stamp. It's important to have enough paint that it'll transfer onto your fabric, but also not too much paint, because if you have too much paint, when it dries, it might crackle. As you can see, I'm grabbing enough paint just so that it covers the surface of the stamp. Then I'll stamp it down, pushing down in the middle and with my finger on all the edges. After that, I pull up the stamp and you can see the beautiful mark that it left. As you can see, I stamped my leaf multiple times across the fabric to create this pattern. I want to add another element, so I'm cleaning off my brush to paint this next stamp. I wanted to go with a nice light yellow color, so I'm mixing my yellow with a little bit of white. Then I'm painting it onto my stamp. I picked a nice place where I wanted it to go, and I stamped it down. Then I'll repeat this process on all the places that I put the orange leaf. As you can see, I repeated it across the fabric, and now I'm doing a new element. This time I wanted to do a green leaf. As you can see, I'm looking where I want to place it so that it matches with the other orange leaf, and painting it and stamping it. There it is again, and I wanted to add one last one on the bottom. Finally, it is complete. Now it's time to clean up this mess, and with everything all clean, it's time to wait for it to dry. I waited for about 30 minutes, but you could wait longer. While we wait for the paint to dry, I wanted to share one last cool story about the Dover Manufacturing Company, and specifically the Dover Mill Girls. In the late 1820s, a new agent named James Curtis was making working at the factory very hard, with lower pay and high expectations. The company employed a lot of women, and in 1828 they became tired of the terrible conditions. Half of the 800 women working there walked out of the factory in protest. This protest, also known as a strike, is very special because it was the first strike done by women in the whole history of the United States. I don't know about you, but I am very proud of those brave Dover women. It is finally time to get sewing. So we're going to take that first piece of fabric that was in your bag and place it with the design facing up. Then we're going to take our designed fabric and place it design facing down. Now I'm going to show you a few ways that you could sew this together. But first, we have to thread our needle, pull it through, and then tie the end. I'm going to tie the end with 2 knots. That way I make sure that the string isn't going to pull through my fabric. 1 knot, and 2 knots. Nice and secure. Here you can see my pillow all sewn up. This is so that I can show you what the 2 stitches look like. This first stitch is a little tricky to learn, but you can sew very fast with it. However, when you flip the pillow inside out, you'll see the stitches on the outside. This stitch is much easier to do, but it takes a little more time. However, when you flip the pillow inside out, you won't see it. Also, I want to point out that I started not from the corner, but from one edge and went all the way around. This way, when I finally stopped, I had a hole right in the middle of one side. It's much easier to have the hole on one side instead of the corner. Now we'll start to stitch. I'm going to show you the first stitch, which was the stitch that I said was a little tricky but goes by very fast. We're going to start by pushing our needle through the front side and pulling it through the back until the knot hits the end. Now we're going to loop it back around and put the needle through the same side. Now here's the important part. We want the needle to go on top of the string. The string is making a loop and we're pulling the needle through that loop. There's the loop up there at the top, and we're making sure the needle goes through. Make sure to hold it so that it doesn't get tangled. And there it is, going through the loop, all the way through. We're going to repeat this process by putting the needle through the same side every time, and making sure it's going through the loop and not under it. Just like that. And you can see the stitch looks the same on both sides. I like this stitch because I can get it done very quickly, but as I said before, when you flip the pillow right side out again, you can see the stitches on the edges. Repeat this until you finish. Next, I'm going to show you the easier stitch, but the one that takes a little bit more time to do. I'm going to pull it through on this front side, but instead of going through the front again, I'm going to go through the back. There's no special looping with this technique. You just go through the front, go through the back, go through the front, and go through the back again. Here you see, I go through the front, and then I go through the back. The stitches on the one before went vertically. These stitches you can see move horizontally. I do like this stitch because when you flip the pillow right side out again, you don't really see it as much. And I'm going to repeat it for that whole side. Now what do you do when you've run out of string? I'm going to show you how to tie with this stitch. You're going to send the needle through one of the stitches that you already did, and then loop it back around and push it through the loop that you made. This way it ties a knot so that it doesn't come undone. Then I'm going to cut off the extra string, re-thread my needle, and start sewing again. For the other stitch, once you've reached the end of your string, you can push it through. I like to push it through towards the front. Then I cut the string and I split the 2 strands in half and make a nice little knot. You could do 1 knot, but I thought that it might be better to do 2 just so that I knew that it was super secure. Sometimes it's hard to tie a knot, but there we go. And then I cut off the extra. Now that all of our sides are stitched, we're going to flip our pillow inside out or outside in, whatever way you like to think of it. I pull it out and I shake it. Then I stick my hand inside and I use my fingers to poke out the corners. It's important that the hole that you leave is big enough to fit your hand so that you can do this. Now I have all the corners poked out and it's ready to stuff. I have my stuffing here and I'm going to start by pushing it into the back corners. Then I'll work my way to the front. But boy, this is going to take a long time. Ta-da! Here it is, all stuffed, and now it's time for the final step, sewing that part closed. As you can see, I've already started, but I want to show you, you could sew it closed with the two pieces flat together like this, or to make it a little bit more clean looking, you can fold them over. That's what I decided to do, but it's a little tricky. With a closer look, you can see I already started, and that helps keep it folded over also. Because it's folded, I'm actually sending my needle through 4 layers of fabric. I'm using my favorite stitch, but when you're sewing this part closed, you could use this stitch or the other one I showed you. I'm going to take it and I'm going to sew through the entire thing. Since this is the final step, I wanted to say thank you so much for going on this journey with me. I hope you had a lot of fun and made a cute little pillow while also learning a little bit about the history of our town of Dover. I want to say a big thank you again to the Dover Arts Commission because they helped me out to be able to make this for you. I also want to say a big thank you to the Dover Public Library. They were a big help in getting supplies and getting the word out. You should definitely check out their website to learn a ton more about the history of Dover. It's pretty awesome. Now we're reaching the end. I'm going to do my final stitches and then I'll tie it closed just like I did before, sliding the needle through a stitch that I already did and then back through that loop. And we did it! Look at all of our amazing pillows. I would love to see yours. I'll leave an email in the description so that you can send me a photo and let me know if I can share your photo with even more people. Thank you so much and have a good one!